Welcome to Mercer Moments in American History, a program dedicated to both current events that impact all of us, but also to some of those major moments in American history that for some reason have been deleted, erased from our history books, erased from our classrooms. Well, I'm bringing those back. Today's program asks the question, why a great compromise? My name is Ken Mercer. I'm known as the Minister of Education. Why? For 16 years as an elected state official, I was blessed to be known as a champion for moms and dads, a champion for parents, for your rights to see what's being taught in our classrooms. Today's program asks the question, why a great compromise? A little sidebar, I've been blessed for many years teaching. I had a 2-hour class on citizenship in the nation, merit badge for our Boy Scouts. I would tell those scouts that my 2-hour class, they walked out and they probably knew more about American history, government, and civics than probably half of America. I'm also blessed that I had several Cuban friends who came here legally documented. They waited in line for 4, 5, 6 years to take the test to be a citizen of our United States. And we reviewed some of those tests, and I was amazed how much knowledge they had of our history, our government, our civics, our foundation. Again, they knew more than probably half of Americans did. You know, different topic, but I always wondered, what if high school students were required to take the same exam that new citizens take? Maybe for a 1/2 credit civics credit for graduation, but take the same exam that new citizens take to show their knowledge of our country, of our structure. That'd be interesting. So let's imagine it's the year 1787, and you're looking at a thing called the Articles of Confederation. Should we amend that? And you said, nah, it's not working for us. Let's study all the governments of the past, and let's create a brand new government, a brand new constitution, which is exactly what our founders did, exactly what they did. But one of the big debates was, what about representation? You know, the larger states with more population said, hey, we should have more representation, which representation equals power. More population, more power. More representation, more power. But the smaller states are saying, that's not fair. We should all be treated the same. And this is what happened in 1787. They're trying to discuss what should we have for representation. And hopefully you know, we created what's called a bicameral system. 2 houses, United States Senate, and United States House of Representatives. But in the Senate today, everybody has how many senators? 2. And some argue, is that fair? California has 39 million people at the last census. Texas, 31 million. Florida, 23 million. But states like Rhode Island have 1.1 million. Delaware only has 1 million. North Dakota only has 789,000 people. But they each get 2 United States senators. You might say, well, is that fair? Well, that's why we had a bicameral system. In the Senate, everybody has 2 U.S. senators. But in 1787, the debate before the Great Compromise was, well, several things. One proposal said every state would have 1 United States senator. Well, the problem with that, if that senator was absent that day, either ill or still traveling, that state would have no representation that day in the Senate. A second amendment said, well, why don't we have 3 U.S. senators, but require a quorum that at least 2 be present? Well, that was much more costly, going from 1 to 3. And as you know, hopefully the compromise, every state would have how many? 2 United States senators. No matter your population, everybody had equal representation in the U.S. Senate, but we had a bicameral system. We have a second house called the House of Representatives. Every 10 years, we have a census, and we count all the people, citizens and non-citizens, in the United States. And we allocate seats in the U.S. House by that population every 10 years. For example, as I speak right now, we have about 330 million people living in our country. I'm going to use the 2010 census. That's about 15 years old, but the numbers are very solid. In 2010, we had 310 million people counted in the census. And you divide that by the fixed number of House seats, which is, do you know what that is? 435, a great test question. 435 House seats divided by by 310 million, you get about 800,000 persons per representative, with the one caveat that every state is guaranteed at least one member of the U.S. House. We have several states right now, like North and South Dakota, Alaska, Delaware, Vermont, etc., that have 2 U.S. senators and 1 member of the House. Isn't it strange? You run for Congress, but your district is the entire state, just like your U.S. senator would run. But that's the way it's set up right now. However, you get more representation for more population. More representation equals less or more power equals more power. And so in the House, these states like California get a lot more representation than, say, Rhode Island, Delaware, South Dakota, North Dakota, or Alaska, for that reason. And that was the compromise. That was the great compromise. We'd have a bicameral system. Everybody in the Senate would receive the same. No matter the population of your state, everyone receives 2 United States senators. In the House, everyone is guaranteed 1. However, the greater the population, the more representation you have. So you might argue, well, in the Senate, maybe Rhode Island or Delaware has more power because they have equal vote to that of California, who has 39 million people. But in the House, it changes. Clearly, California, Texas, New York, Florida get a lot more representation. And that's the purpose of the Great Compromise, to create 2 houses, a Senate and a House, representation equal in the Senate by population in the House. There's one more thing you should know, an argument I hear quite often, the 2010 census, it was the state of California, check my numbers, but I believe they counted 3.6 million people who were non-citizens but legal residents. They were documented non-citizens, 3.6 million, but they also in their census counted 2.4 million undocumented who were living in California. Now, using real math, not that common core math junk that some people try to push in our poor sons and daughters for a decade, but using real math, 3.6 million residents, legal documented, 2.4 million undocumented, with 6 million persons counted. And you could argue that California had 8 more representatives in the United States House, 8 more, by counting 6 million non-citizens. Now, first of all, that is the law. That's the way we count it. And I think part of the reason that might be the apportionment of federal funds. When you're giving money, say, for education, it's about how many people are there, whether citizens, non-citizen. I know in Texas right now, the average is about $16,000 a year per child. And that's just an average number. If you have a child that has special needs, or maybe has English as a second language, or bilingual education, the numbers go up. But the allocation of numbers for federal money is by persons, including, and it's just an honest thing, not a critical comment, but education, whether it be Medicare, whether it be housing, food vouchers, everything is by number of people. So that may explain why we do count everyone. And those y'all disagree with that, I understand your argument, but the law is we count everyone and use that. Again, California had it in 2010 as many as 8 additional representation in the U.S. House because they had 6 million people who were non-citizens. But bottom line is, that was the Great Compromise. And that is foundational to so many programs that I have right now. I hope you enjoyed today's program. As always, I request that if you like today's program, please hit the like button or subscribe. Let our sponsors know that Mercer Moments in American History is reaching people and we are making a difference. And secondly, I always give a shout out to one state, and today's shout out was the state of North Carolina. Next time it can be your state. But I ask you to pray for those young men and women in high school and post-secondary, those young people who really love America, have great American faith and values, particularly in today's political environment. They need our encouragement. They need our prayers. Quick summary, the Great Compromise is what? It was about power, about population. The U.S. Senate, every state gets how many senators? 2. In the U.S. House, you're guaranteed how many representatives? 1. But you have more representation. If you have the greater population, the more representation. And greater representation equals mathematically more power. Always remind everyone that I think throughout my life that the strength of America, it's always been our faith and our values coupled with our awesome worship. That's my opinion. Our faith and values coupled with our worship so many times in America has made us so strong, has brought us back, has taken America back to where we should be. And I ask you to please never forget that in a place called the United States of America, in God, we still trust right here in America. In God, we still trust. Thank you and blessings.